Okay, so happy Halloween to you all. I will warn you right now that some days you just have really bad days. And thus far, everything I've tried to do today has failed miserably. Like, the copy center didn't have my copies, can't actually make the copies in here. When the copies finally came out, they're green. I mean, you know, maybe it's a sign that it's Halloween or something. I don't know. But it's just the way it is. So if I touch your computer and I break everything that you've been doing, it's not my fault, okay? I'm warning you now, okay? So we're going to do our best, given the circumstances, to make stuff turn out today. But such is life. Okay, so we're going to move on in the world of AutoCAD. And today we're going to focus on trying to create elevations of our building. So what does the building look like from the side? And thus far, we've worked extensively with the floor plan to create a floor plan and kind of work through that in site context and all the rest of it. Now we want to see what does it look like in elevation. This will be challenging for some of you. Some of you, it will be easier. It kind of depends. If you've taken 130 before and done some of the drafting and some of the coordination of views, top view, front view, right side view, this will be a little bit easier. For those of you that haven't taken it before, I'll try my best to walk through the basics of the steps, and then I'll sit with you and we'll try to get through it. But the idea here is that there's always a relationship between the top or the plan view and the side or the elevation view. And if we were traditionally drawing, and we've broken this down a little bit in current technology use, because many times now we just model it in 3D and then we see the elevation as we are modeling. But in the case of the old school way of doing things, if we go way back to when you used to have to draw by hand, this was how you would set up a drawing, or at least your draft version of a drawing. You would draw your floor plan, and then you would pull your elevation from your floor plan. And so I'm going to walk you through how to do that in kind of the old school way. And then as we go forward in the semester, you'll actually be doing the 3D modeling in SketchUp, and you'll kind of see the relationship. But we're starting with the old strategy of kind of how this works, partly because we don't do any 3D work in the world of AutoCAD, if I can help it. So we'll start first with our layers. And we did work with layers before in this class, so this should seem relatively familiar. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Layer Properties button at the top of the page here. And under the Layer Properties, I have a door, a flooring, a furniture, a wall, etc. Okay? So I'm going to create a new layer. And that new layer I'm going to call A-elevation. Now, I could be more specific. I could say a south elevation, a north elevation. It's up to you. I'm going to just start with elevation. I can always add to it a little bit later on. Okay? That elevation layer, I'm going to make sure it's white, it's continuous, and the default line weight is fine for right now. Okay? We can always come back and adjust that later. Now, I'm also going to create another layer, and I'm going to call this other layer Guides. Okay? And so this Guides layer, which I will make active, I'm going to move the check mark next to Guides. This Guides layer, I'm going to go ahead and change color. And in terms of guides, you could do red, you could do green. It's a matter of whatever seems right to you. I'll choose red for right now. I'll probably use other colors down the road for different Guides layer. But we'll go ahead and say that Guides is red. And if I come over here, at the second to last button, there's a little printer icon. I want to make sure I click on that printer icon, and it puts a little circle with a red slash through it next to it. And that means that when I go to print this layer, it's not going to print. And so that's ideal. Okay, so this is just Guides to help me out. So it's active, it's non-printing, so I don't have to worry about them showing up. So I'll go ahead and close the layers for right now. The Guides layer is my current layer, and now I can go ahead and start drawing. Yeah?
For some reason, there's some random other layers in my layer properties.
It probably came with your block. Whatever block you pulled in, they probably had certain layers associated with them. So don't worry about it. We can go back and clean it up later. For now, just kind of keep with it. So I'm going to start, before I do anything else, by drawing a bounding box around my object. And what I mean by a bounding box is basically a rectangle that goes all the way around and it completely encloses my object. So it's easy to find the bottommost corner here because nothing sticks out beyond that. So it's easy to start with that corner. But as I come up here, I've got little wings that come out here, and I've got a staircase that comes out right there. So I'm going to use the tracking to find this upper corner. and I'm actually going to, of course, it falls right on top of a line here. Let's see, we're going to track there and track there. There we go. So it's right there where those two meet. And that gives me a bounding box around the entire outside of my building. Okay? It's useful to have this as a starting place because you understand the bounds of your floor plan. And your floor plan is going to look a little bit different. You just want to make sure that this box completely encloses your entire floor plan and that it is whatever the furthest most point is on all four corners is covered. So here I have to reference this little staircase because that's the furthest most point to the west of this particular floor plan. Okay? So I have a bounding box that goes all the way around my work. And I'm going to start down here, and let's, for the ease of looking here, let's go ahead and turn off my topography. Right, they're currently locked, but I'll go ahead and freeze them just so that they're not distracting. And then I'm going to work to draw my south elevation, so the elevation that goes looking at this building. Okay, so if I was standing right here looking this way, it would be the elevation that I see. So I'll start doing that by giving myself some general guidelines to work from. And I'll use what's called the ray tool to do that. There's two tools that work hand in hand. One is construction line or X line. The other is ray. Ray is one-sided. You start at a point and go to infinity in one direction. Construction line or an X line is the key command for it. Goes in both directions from a point. So it's just a matter of preference. In this case, I'm going to use a ray. So I'll go ahead and type ray and then enter. And I'll start at this corner of the building, and I'm going to go straight down. So you see that it asks me basically for a starting point and then a direction. Okay, so if I go straight down and press enter, no matter how far I zoom out, see that line just goes off into infinity. Okay, that's the advantage of a ray. So I'll do the same thing at each of my major corners. So we'll go ahead and repeat the ray command from there. We'll repeat it from right here. We'll repeat it from right here. Let me turn on ortho for just a second. There we go. I'll repeat it from right here, like that. Okay, so I've identified all the major corners in my building. Okay, then I'll start with a line that goes, and it can be arbitrary. It doesn't matter how far away it is. That will represent where the ground is in this, and it's kind of a temporary line. So in this case, I'll use X line, which is a construction line, and it doesn't matter where I place it. We'll place it maybe right there, and I'll go ahead and hit enter. Notice that that line goes infinitely in both directions instead of one. So there's just two commands that I'm using, ray and X line. So now that I have those, right, as a basic guide, I can go ahead and start drawing the elevation of this building. So let me switch from the guides layer to the elevation layer. Now that I'm on the elevation layer, I'll go ahead and start either with the polyline or the line tool to start drawing. Okay? So if I start drawing, right, we'll call this, for lack of something better, the ground. And then I can start drawing the various heights of this building. Now, you may or may not have thought about what your building looks like in elevation, right? How many people already know what their building looks like in elevation? Okay? A few of you. That's good, right? When we start learning the design process and whatever, the further along you are in school, the more you think in elevation and section than you do in plan. It's more important because that's how we experience space. But anyway, if you haven't thought about what your building looks like, you're about to discover what your building looks like from the side. Okay? But if you have thought about it, you have some idea of how tall certain elements of your building are. I have a version of this that I've already drawn. Right? Same floor plan here. This is what I'm ultimately going to be drawing here of what the building looks like in its elevation form. So I have a couple different heights. I think I go 10 feet, and I'm double checking here so that it ends up looking the same. No, I go 11 feet, or excuse me, 12 feet. And I think this is 14-ish, yeah. Actually, I should go from the ground. Hold on a second. Yeah, 14, 12, and 10 were my heights. So let me switch back to this version. There we go. And I'll start with a line, or actually I'll use a polyline. We'll start at this corner right here. And on this side, I went up 12 feet I went over, I went back down, and I'll hit enter to finish. I start right here. This one was up 16 feet. I go over, and I go back down. The little piece in the center was at 10 feet. So I'll use the polyline again, but I'm going to go from this point up 10 feet, and then over. And this one at the end was up 10 feet and over. Okay? And what I did is I set this as the inside floor of the building. I'm going to have to add some space below. You notice that I have a few stairs here anyway, and I'll do that in just a second. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get an outline of what the outside of my building looks like. Okay? Now, in this particular building, I did it with a flat roof. Flat roof makes life really easy because we're drawing straight lines across. You may or may not have done a flat roof. That involves a little bit more work if you obviously have a sloping roof, etc. I'll take a break in a little bit after I draw some more, and I'll draw part of this as if it were a sloping roof, just so you can see that as part of the exercise. But for right now, we're going to stick with the flat roof. Okay, so I have this. The next piece of the puzzle is to start to draw in. I have these little wings that are on the sides of the building. So let me go back to making sure nothing's selected, hit escape, go back to the guides layer, and I'm going to start with ray again. And I'll do a ray from here. I'll do a ray from here. And you see that gives me information down here. Likewise, this is a skinny little wall. So we'll put that in. Okay. And now I'll start to draw a little bit more. So let's start with the polyline tool. Let's go right to that point. Now this comes up, and in reality, it's not going to go all the way to the ceiling. There's going to be a thickness to the ceiling. So I knew that this was a 12-foot line before, so maybe I'll do 11 feet, and we'll come across, and then we'll come back down. Now I made a mistake here in that this, I didn't switch back to my elevation layer. So I'm just selecting the object, and I'll come up to this drop down and switch to the elevation layer so that it's on its correct layer. And I'll hit escape. Let me go back to my elevation layer as it should be, and then we'll keep drawing. So I had right here, this was at 10 feet, so we'll go up maybe 9 feet, and we'll go across like that. So you can see I'm just starting to build up what this elevation looks like from the side based on information that's in my plan. So now I can continue on with the ray tool, and maybe I'll pull the windows down. So at a certain point, it may be useful to get rid of some of your rays or to create a new, because if I did all the lines at once, there would be just a jumble of lines. So it may be helpful to delete the lines and then start with some fresh lines. So I'll come back once again to the ray tool, and this time I'll work on the windows. So let's pull, I need to be on the guides layer. There we go. And then we'll try ray, and I'll go from there. There. I am, by the way, right-clicking to get that context menu after I finish for repeat ray. On my own personal AutoCAD, I have it set up so that it automatically repeats the last command without giving me the context. It just goes straight to that. That's personal preference. So I don't do it here because it's not customized for you guys. So now I've drawn in all of the dividing lines for my windows. So now it would be a matter of actually drawing in the windows. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use the line tool this time. And I'll start with just a single line that goes from here to here. But before I do that, let me switch back to the elevation layer, and then I'll draw it. So we'll do a line from there to there. And I'm just going to take this line, and I'm going to copy it. There, 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 and one more right there. Okay, so now I imagine there's going to be some vertical divisions to these windows as well. So I'll go ahead and draw a few vertical divisions in. Let's go maybe up 2 feet, and we'll go across. And then maybe I'll offset this by, I don't know, 1 inch, something like that. And then maybe I'll copy this, and we'll go up maybe 4 feet. Let's go 6 feet. There. And so maybe those are my divisions. I can go ahead and copy these. There. To each of these windows. And I now have drawn up what that little piece of the building looks like. Okay? So now I can move on and do the windows here. So once again, I'll switch back to the guides layer, and I'll type ray. And in this case, I have just a post in the center of these windows, there and there. So I pulled those down. Now, this is in a bathroom, so the windows are probably above the countertop height. So maybe we'll go up, I don't know, 3 foot 6 inches. I'll go ahead and draw across. Again, I forgot to change my layer, so we'll take that and we'll move it to the elevation layer. And then maybe these windows are, 5 feet tall, so let's offset by 5 feet. There we go. And I can take these, copy from there to there. And I need to draw that piece and that piece. Again, wrong layer. Select them both and change them to the elevation layer. So you see I'm working my way through the building and adding little bits of detail as we go. If I do the windows on this, they're much taller, skinnier windows. So let me go ahead and do the ray. I'm just going to do one because these are all the same window. So I'll repeat the ray there. There they are. And let's use a box this time. And I'm going to go up. That's not going to let me. I'll use a polyline instead. Oh, come on. Do it that way. Same height. And we'll go over. And then we will go up. Let's go maybe 10 feet. We'll go over and back down. I'll select that, move it onto its elevation layer, and then maybe add a little frame. So let's offset by 1 inch. There it is. Now that I've drawn it, we'll go ahead and take it, and I can copy it using my plan. So we'll go, there's one window there. There's another window here, there, there, and there. And we end up with the little copies of those windows. Okay? So I've gone ahead and I've drawn this from the floor up. Now I need to worry about what happens below the building. Okay? How many people have actually paid attention to their building before that they live in? Right? Do you guys know that there's space below your building? Right? There's always space below your building. Okay? So when you walk up to your front door, it's very, very likely that you step up at least once to get there. Okay? So we need to do the same thing to get into our building. Now, there's a technical way of working through what the topography looks like and how do you make the actual ground, and I'll show you that in just a second. But for starters, let's at least add a little bit of space below my building. So I have drawn in that there is 1, 2, 3 steps to get up. So if we started with a line, and let me switch to my elevation layer. If we started with a line that went across right there, we could offset that line by the distance of a step. So let's offset. And for the sake of clean, I'll say 6 inches. Usually steps are a little bit more than 6 inches, but for cleanliness, we'll do 6 inches. And I'll say that is there. So that would be 1, 2, and 3 gets me to the upper floor. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's my lowest stair. There's probably 6 inches below that point. So I'm going to need to take this wall, pull it to there, and then I'll need to add 6 more inches. So if it's currently, well, this would currently be 10 feet. I could say this is now 11 feet. Oops, no, that was wrong. Should have been 10 foot 6. Sorry. Feet, 6 inches, like that. I can pull this line down as well, maybe. There we go. Make it match there. And then I can go ahead and draw a ground. Okay, so I'll use the line tool. We'll go all the way across my building. And actually, let's go a little bit past my building. And likewise, we'll go a little bit past my building here. And so that line is usually a nice thick line, so I'll go ahead and manually change the layer to be maybe, or the thickness of the line to be maybe, I don't know, 0.6. So it's a nice, big, bold, thick line. Okay? Now I need to work my way through the rest of the building. So this line needs to go down to there. This line needs to go down to there. This line needs to go down to there. That line needs to go to there. There. And there. Now I also have to draw where the floor would be across here. I didn't want this to be solid, otherwise it could have been a solid block. So I'm going to draw a line that goes from here across to there. So these windows go all the way down to the floor. Okay? And technically there probably is a little window frame there, but we'll go there. So let me turn off temporarily the guides layer, and we can start to see that I've drawn the elevation of this side of the building. Okay? Could I continue to tweak it and work with it? Sure. Right? There's always time to add more detail, but I want to get a certain level of detail available to me, and then I can continue to work from there. So I have this elevation drawn. Let me go ahead and turn back on my guides layer. So the south elevation, generally people can see the correlation. It's easy to say, okay, well, what's happening here on this wall goes to there. The truth is, though, that this has a relationship all the way around the building. So this elevation, right, would happen off to this side. And if I turned my head to the side, I could see it. Right? Likewise, if I turned my head the opposite direction, I could draw the elevation right here. Furthermore, if I wanted the north elevation, I could draw it upside down on this side. So if I look at the one that I have complete, you can see that I've actually drawn the building elevations on all sides, right? But they're folded out from that particular side. Okay? Now, for me, having lots and lots of practice doing this sort of thing, it doesn't matter whether I draw the building upside down, right side up. My brain just flips it around. I don't actually sit and look at it this way. I can just draw it because I have a lot of practice. For you guys, it may be really, really difficult to do that. And I totally recognize it and I get it. Okay? So I'm going to show you the way around this, okay? So that you don't have to draw on the side or draw upside down. And that is that I can turn everything on, all of my layers, make sure that all of the layers are unlocked. Okay? Then I will take everything, including all of my guides, everything, and I will rotate from my bounding box 90 degrees. So let me type rotate. I'll start at this point right here. Remember, it has to be one of the bounding box corners. And I'll type in 90. And I'll hit enter. I've now just rotated my whole building over 90 degrees, which gives me the opportunity to once again turn off the topography. Oops, sorry. Turn off the topography. There we go. And I can start drawing the next elevation right here. Okay? But there's a trick. I already have a bunch of heights established here in this elevation, so I can reflect across a 45-degree line all the information that's here because they're related to one another. Okay? And this is a more advanced technique, but I want to show it to you. Okay? So I'm going to start with array. Well, let me make sure that I'm on the guides layer. And I'll start with array, and I'm going to go from this bounding box point right there. Now, it's snapping to 90 right now. So I don't want that. I want it to be at 45. So I'm going to press tab to get to the second value. So not the distance, but the value. And I want that value to be negative 45 because it's going down at 45. And then I'll click somewhere on that line. That gives me a line at negative 45. Okay? So with that line established, I can then start to pull information from this elevation to this elevation. So let me go ahead and type ray, and I'll start with the basic heights. So there's the tallest section of my building. And let me turn back on ortho. So if I went down here and then across from where those two meet, that would be the height of this part of my building. Okay? Likewise, I could repeat the ray from that corner down and over, okay? And that gives me the height of the little pop out for the stairs. I also want the base height, or where I set my ground. So I will once again type ray, and we'll go down, and we'll repeat the ray going that direction. So now I have the base, the height of the stairs, and the height here of the top of the building here. So let me go ahead and pull some lines down. So I'll use the major corners. We'll start there. We'll start right here. We'll start right here. And we'll start right there. And then I'll switch my layers to be on the elevation layer. I'll go to polylines, and we'll go from here, up, over, and down. Enter. Polyline again, from here, up to there, over, and down like that. And I'll go ahead and hit enter. So you can see that I'm already starting to establish what that shape is for this elevation based on the information that's here. Okay? I have a bit more information on this edge that I haven't dealt with yet. So let me go ahead and type ray. This line sticks out past that line. So I need to pull a line down. Oops, let me switch to my guides layer. And then we'll do a ray from right here to there. And I'll press enter. And I also have a line that's way out here, and we'll repeat from there down to there. So in this case, this wall is still part of this building. It's just set further away. So I'm going to go ahead and draw up on my elevation layer, up from right there to right there, and connect those two because they're part of the same little building. And then this building has a height of this. So let's use my guides, and we'll type array, and we'll go to that point. We'll go to this point. And so now, if we go back to my elevation layer, we can draw from here to right there, which is the line that I needed for that, and back across to right there. So again, I'm using the information from these lines to pull around, and there's that end of the building itself. You guys see how I'm working that around? Okay? It's kind of one of the key strategies. So let's go ahead and add a ground line to this. Maybe something like that. Oops. No. Told you something was going to go wrong today. All right, let's try it one more time. And I wanted this to be thicker. 0.6. Doesn't need to be that long. Like that. Okay? So now I could move on to my next elevation. This one's pretty simple. There weren't any windows on that. I could move on to my next elevation. Remember, I have to make sure that everything is turned on and unlocked. Then I could take everything that I've worked on, rotate from that corner, 90, and I've worked my way back. Okay, you see how I'm just working my way around. Okay? Then I could do the same ray. Let me switch to the guides layer. Ray. If I can type. From that corner, tab to switch, -45. There it is. Oops. Turn off ortho. Can't win right now. There we go. And there's my 45. And I could pull the same lines around from this building to draw this elevation. So I'm just working my way around the building, okay, which is the idea here. I want you today to at least have gotten the south elevation done. If it takes you a little bit longer to get the rest of the elevations, no big deal, but that's where we're going. It's all part of your assignment 105, so you're not wasting your time by working on the elevations. You're going to have all 4 elevations anyway, okay? So keep working your way through. I did tell you a couple things. One, that I was going to show you how to do the topography, okay, if you want to, which is an advanced skill. For your assignment 105, You do not have to show the topography. I'm happy if it's just a straight line. Okay? If you want to try to push your knowledge, doing the actual slope is a good thing to practice. Okay? But it may or may not work out for you, so it's not going to be a required piece of the puzzle. Okay? Likewise, the roof plan, I say, is optional. It helps some people to kind of figure it out. But if you have a sloping roof, it may be challenging to work through it. I'm, again, happy to kind of sort through that with you. So let me show you the topography. And again, we're going toward the advanced skills. I'm going to rotate myself back. Let me select all. I'm going to rotate myself back to be in the first position. So let me rotate. Starting there, -90. I'm going to select all, rotate. -90, so that I'm back in this position. This was the part that I started from. Okay? If I drew all 4 of the elevations and I rotated each time, obviously I'd end up with the last rotation being back to where north was. Right? We always want north to be straight up. Okay, so here I am. I have this drawn. I want, instead of this line, I want to have actual topography. Okay? So this is where it gets a little tricky. So the plane that I'm drawing the elevation is a plane that occurs along the bounding box right here. Okay? So if we were further back drawing the building in elevation form, it would be easier to see a perspective or something. We want it to be as if we're right on the surface of the building, perfectly flat. Okay, that's the nature of an elevation. So what I need is, and let me go ahead and for clarity, I'm going to turn off the guides layer. Oops, it's current. Let me add a new layer called Topo Guides, and we'll change the topo, this color layer to maybe be this blue, this cyan color. Let's make that active, and then we'll turn off the regular guides, and I'll work from this Topo Guides layer. Okay? So I'm going to start with an X line. Well, let me start with the bounding box, which was on my last drawing, but I'll make sure it's on this one as well. There it is. So I have that bounding box. Can you guys distinguish the difference between the white and the cyan? Not really. Let me see if I can change the color to be something that you can see better. How about that? Yeah, you guys can see the green okay on the projector, right? Okay, so there's that. Oh, and I should have, just for clarity, I have to make sure it's on a non-printing layer, which it is. Okay, so I have the bounding box. I'm going to do a construction line, so an X line, right from the center, going off in both directions from right there. Okay? So like I said, the elevation is taken at that front face of the building along that bounding box line. Okay? And what I need to know is I need to know where this crosses the pieces of the topography around the building. And I want to extend out past the building a bit, and I'm going to draw a piece of topography that's much larger than my elevation. So if I look at that green line, I'm going to use the ray command to draw a line that goes from each point that this line crosses. So let's turn on ortho. So I'll have a point there. I'm going to repeat my ray and go from right there. I'm going to repeat my ray and go from right there. I'll repeat it and go from right there. Okay? Minimum I need is these, because as I look in the rest of my elevations, those cover all of the topo lines that I'm going to cross. I could do one extra just to make sure I had more than enough contour. Okay? So, again, it's everywhere that it crosses those lines. I'm going to set up an arbitrary X line way below my drawing down here just to work from for a second. Okay? Then I will start with a line, and let me make a, we'll just switch to the elevation layer. I'm going to make a line that goes from here to there. So it's just a short little line like that. Okay? Now, we know that the interval between each of these contours is 1 foot. I told you that. Okay? So I will offset this white line by 1 foot. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I should have enough. I should have 5 lines. You want the same number of lines as the same number of times you cross up here. Okay? So I have those. Now I'm going to use a tool that's called a spline tool. It's available right here. Okay? And that spline tool is going to allow me to draw a smooth curve through specific points. So I'll start at the lowest point here. I'll move to my crossing and go up to my next point right there. I'll move to my next crossing, go to that point. I'll move to my next crossing, go to that point, and my last crossing will be right there. I'll hit enter to finish, and then I can get rid of all the horizontal lines. So let me select all of them. Like that. I'll press delete, and now I have the slope of the topography rather than just a straight line. Do you guys see how I created that? So now I can move this up to where it matches up with my building. Okay? And so I don't actually have a good idea of where this crosses. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit arbitrary on the first one, but then I can pull the lines around using the 45s to make sure that they all line up from here on out. So I'll go ahead and move this up. We'll start here. We'll move up to maybe there. Okay. In reality, it would probably be nice for this stair if it lined up nicely. So let's move this to right there. Perfect. I'm going to get rid of this line because it's no longer relevant. There's my sloping line. Let's make that one thicker. So we'll go to 0.6 on that one. And that then represents the actual terrain, right, rather than just the straight arbitrary line. I do have to make a few corrections. So these are not long enough right now. So let me go ahead and go to Extend. And Extend asks me to select objects. So I'll select that object, and I'll select all of these little objects that cross it there. And that should be it. I'll hit Enter. And then I can click on the ends of these, and it will make the lines long enough to where they cross. It's kind of like the opposite of trim. Okay, so those work. This line crosses. If I hold down Shift while I do it, I can do a trim during the Extend command because they work hand in hand. Okay, so now I've drawn where that topo line goes. Obviously, it's way too long for the building, right? So I can trim it off, but I'll leave it long for right now. Okay, let me go ahead and turn on my guides layer from before. Remember, I had that 45-degree line. Okay. I can use that to reflect the topography onto this building. And I'll do that in just a second. So let's turn off the guides. And again, this is advanced. Okay? And I'll do the same thing. Let's get rid of these guides for confusion purposes. Leaving those. And I'm going to do the same thing with an X line. And I could rotate the whole building again. But in this case, I'm not going to. And I'll draw my X line. Should have been on the topo guides layer. Let's make sure the topo guides are active. There we go. And every place that this one crosses, I'm going to draw a line. So array is going to go from there out, from there out, from there out, from there out. Okay, so I've drawn those. I'll start with an arbitrary line down here somewhere. There we go. We'll offset this by 1 foot. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And now I'll switch to my elevation layer. I'll use the spline tool right there. And this time, right, I have to pay attention to which is the higher side, so I'll start from this edge, and I'll work my way down. So then it crosses here, crosses there, and crosses there. Hit Enter, and we can get rid of all these guides. We don't need them anymore. And there's my topo line. We'll make it thick so you guys can see it as a topo line. There it is. Now I need to move it up. So I said before that I had that reflecting line. So let me go ahead and turn on my guides, right? Notice that the reflecting line crosses right through that topo line. Okay? All I have to do is take this topo line, move it. I'm going to get it close here for a second. There we go. And I'm going to move this until we get nice and close. And we'll move this from there to right there. Okay, so those cross nicely. Now I have the elevation for this side of the building. So once again, I'm going to have to clean it up. I have some extensions to make. So let's do extend with this, 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 that, enter, there, 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 and there. Okay? So now I have the topo for this elevation, and I could continue to work my way around. So like I said, the topo is a little bit more advanced, trying to figure out what that line is, but it does add to the realism of your building, because your building is in fact on a slope. I told you guys earlier that there was no reason that you didn't have to accommodate wild slope. You can see from this that we can have a flat floor, but there is just a little bit of slope to the ground outside. Okay? So start working today on your south elevation. If you finish it, move on to each of your subsequent elevations. And you can go from there. Okay? If you wanted to do a sloping roof, this was the last piece that I told you I would talk about, right? Let me go ahead and turn off my topo guides layer. Let me turn off my actual guides layer. There we go. And I'm continuing to work on my elevation layer for right now. Actually, let's create a new layer, and I'll call this guide roof for lack of something better. Let's see if we can pick some kind of a color that you can see. All right, we'll make that active. And so let's say that instead here I wanted to deal with this as a roof. I'll start with the bounding box again. There's my bounding box. So if I wanted to put a sloping roof on this piece of the building, right, I would start with array and pull this information down. And this is a little bit awkward because generally there's an overhang to the building. Okay? So I have an array that goes from my actual wall down on each side. So we'll go down and it represents the side of the wall. But if I was doing a sloping roof, say maybe a 6 and 12 or something like that, right, I would probably have part of the building overhanging out here, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like just yet. So as I start to work through this, I'm going to evolve it as I go along. Furthermore, if this was a sloping roof, there would be a peak somewhere here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw an array that goes from the center, if I can find the center, right there, down through the center of my building like that. Okay? Now I need to actually draw the slope of the roof. So this is in Yosemite, so maybe it's a little bit higher slope roof. Maybe it's an 8 and 12. That means that for every 12 inches of run, you get 8 inches of rise. Okay? So I'll go ahead and start. Let me switch to my elevation layer. I'll start with a line. And so I'll start at this point. And remember back to those coordinates that I used to have you do? Okay, you could calculate out what an 8 and 12, what the angle would be. To me, it's a lot easier to do it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and use the @ sign. Oh, let me turn off dynamic input here, which of course isn't showing. Turn that on. Dynamic input. It's right there. Let's turn it off. And so now we can go ahead and type in @ for the value. We're going to go 12 inches in the rise, or excuse me, in the run, comma, 8 inches in the rise, and enter. It gives me the slope of 8 and 12, which is really convenient. Okay? So now that I have that slope, we can use extend, which I told you about just a second ago, with that center line. And we'll go up to where we meet the center. Then I can take this and I can mirror it across that center to make the lower part, or the opposite part of my building. Now, I told you that in all likelihood it would extend beyond here a little bit, and we're not going to get into the technicalities about how the actual wall is made and how tall it would be. We're just going to go with kind of generic values. Okay? So let's say that I wanted it to extend out a foot. I could go to offset 1 foot. There it is. I could then extend out to there. Okay, you see how I'm making up what that line would be. Now let me go ahead and make it a little bit thicker. So let's say offset, and we'll do, I don't know, let's say it was a 2 by 8, so we'll do 7.25 inches. And there that would be. Let's do a little trim piece. Let's go offset, I don't know, let's go maybe 3.5 inches. Repeat offset, 3.5 inches. There we go. There's my object, something like that. Okay. And then I could draw, say, a line here. And let's make this a little bit shorter. A line there. Offset 1.5 inches, just so they have a nice little reveal. I'm going to fill it with a radius of 0. Oops. Radius 0, and we'll connect that to that and delete this. So I'm working on creating kind of that little edge to my building. Let's go ahead and trim off this part. So I'll type trim. We'll get rid of the center right there and there. Enter. I'll go ahead and get rid of this piece, and I'll mirror this whole thing across from there to there. Okay? So I've now created that. Obviously, I no longer need this upper line. Okay? So let me go ahead and trim with these pieces to get rid of that, 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 and that. Oops. That. Enter. We can get rid of this altogether. Oops. Delete. All right, and so now I've drawn it with the upper piece. Looks very church-like for whatever reason. Okay. So I've drawn that. Right. I know where the peak is. I know where the eaves are. In all reality, right, I should draw a plan that represents that up here. So I should create a layer called roof, A-roof. We'll make that active. And I'm going to change the line type to be hidden. Let's do hidden too. And I think I say on the back what the thickness would be of that, 0.18. There we go. Might as well do that. And then I can go ahead and come up here with the polyline tool, and I can start to draw what the roof looks like. So we already know that it starts a foot away. So it would be a 1 foot overhang here. We'll go across to right there. It would be over another foot. And then we'd be coming back, etc. Okay, so I'd be working around my building to draw this plan. And then the gable would be right at the center, right there, and it would be going across the building here. I haven't drawn the back side yet, so I don't know what it would look like. Okay. If I were doing a transition piece, so if I had a roof that was going over this piece connecting together, I could figure out where the two meet, draw back here to where the two meet, and then draw that piece of it as well. Okay. This building was not designed for a sloping roof, so I'm making this up as I go along. Okay? But I at least wanted to show you how you would go about constructing that from a technical standpoint. Okay, so I know I threw a lot of information at you at once. Right? That's the nature of this class. It is what it is. Okay? I want you to start on the south elevation. If you run into snags or whatever, let me know, and I'll try to help you through it so that you can get 4 elevations out. Okay? However far you get today, if you get 1 elevation, if you get 5 elevations, well, 4 elevations, or whatever, post what you have. Okay? Good deal.